Welcome to the Chattanooga Depression Care Member Interview Series. I'm Regina Gee with Wellspring, and my world is all about helping rebuild after depression. And I'm here today with Quinn from Walnut Street Publishing, and thank you so much for having this conversation.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm super stoked to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about who you are, what you do, how it helps with depression, and why you do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So you can start anywhere, but maybe at the beginning in introducing yourself.
Yeah, like you said, I'm Quinn. I run Walnut Street Publishing. We're an independent publisher here in Chattanooga, and our main mission is to reimagine publishing as community and to tell stories through all medium of art, not just traditional writing.
Publishing as community.
Yes.
I love how you're a member of this depression care collective and you're like a bonus member. So you wouldn't normally think about having a publishing company represented in this collective, and yet the work you're doing is so connective.
Yes. And that's the thing, right? Is I think there's a little bit of hesitancy sometimes to, especially as artists, to get treatment for mental health issues. And if people from the artistic world step into this space a little bit more, I think we can open up the doors to say, hey, this is just part of the artistic process. Depression is just another side of the coin. So it feels like a very natural fit because of that.
It makes total sense to me, and I'm excited to kind of tell the story to someone who's like, well, how does that make sense? So do you want to start with saying Walnut Street's mission, or do you want to start with telling about how it helps with depression?
Let's, I guess, with the mission, start with the meta, then go down
Yep.
to the, so, one of our main missions is publishing a lot of times can seem almost cold and sterile, as though it's only for elite writers, and I don't like that. That's not who I am. I'm somebody who likes the gritty of life, who likes the random and the mad, the rad, those moments of passion. And when I started Walnut Street and they brought me in to run it, I really wanted to explore if there was a different way of going about publishing that said, we are accessible. We want you to be able to approach us and to just stay. It's not about turning you into a capitalistic adventure. It's more of saying your story matters, and is there a way for us to organically tell that story? And the best way to get people to be comfortable enough to tell their stories, especially if it's not through a traditional book, is by spending time with them, slowing down the process, and just doing life and doing community with them. And that's our mission, is become accessible, create incredible opportunities for artists of all types, of all ages, of all mediums, and just do life with them and slow down the process so they can feel comfortable to tell their stories.
So you've made it so publishing isn't this thing that's way over there and untouchable and hoity-toity elite, and how could I ever have published work?
Right.
And been like, hey, our stories as a community matter, and having a space for them matters. So we're gonna make the books, we're gonna have the gallery walls, and we're also gonna have community space where people can come be together in real life.
And a lot of events, right? So whether it's creative spaces where creatives just come and we talk about our journey. We have Paint Pass, where you paint on canvas for 5 minutes, then you pass it to your right. We have poetry critique groups. We have D&D nights. At the beginning of the year, we're going to start monthly board game nights. So it's just always finding different ways for that creative energy to flow and to thrive. And also, we believe in showing up for other people. A lot of times, at least in my experience, when people talked about community, it was about community come to them. We want to go to the community. So that means if you have a ballet, if you have a music show, if your art's in an exhibit, if you're doing a poetry reading, or if you're doing a fundraiser, whatever it may be, Walnut Street wants to show up and not be Walnut Street, the business entity, but be Walnut Street, the community presence that says, we support you no matter what.
We believe in you all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Parker Palmer talks about how the question of who am I and whose am I are connected. You can't answer who am I without the whose am I?
Right.
Who do I belong to? And you guys have lived that.
Yes. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact of my upbringing had a lot of bullying in it. So the whose am I was a perpetual question. And I want people to be able to step into our space or to see us, and by us, the people of Walnut Street Publishing, and say, I'm safe there. I can be whoever I want. I can be whatever I want to be, and I'm safe. And if we can bring that energy to the art world, I think that's a healthy space, because there's so much people are processing, and especially it's election season, so everybody's stressed and arguing and stuff. And we just want to be this space where it's like, we're good.
It's all cool.
We are each other's. We're community. We're locked together. We're going to disagree. We're going to have mental health struggles. We're going to have great moments of triumph. We're going to have great moments of defeat. But in it all, we're still together. And I think that's something that a lot of people haven't experienced a lot in their life. I know I didn't.
And especially in the art community, where it's kind of like an individual sport. It's like, okay, I'm painting by myself and I'm in competition with other people. And it's like, hey, wait a second, like we're all in this together.
For sure. And that's one thing I tell people a lot is like, if it becomes a competition, I'm not in competition with you. If it becomes a competition thing, I'm actually going to give you my space. You can have it, because that's not what I'm
not
about.
here to win it.
Yeah. There's enough of the pie to go around, and there's enough, if we support each other. Chattanooga is such a special community that if we drop that competitive edge and say, let's go through passion instead, then there's enough for people to thrive. And so, yeah, that competitive, like, I want to toss that out the window. I'm not a very competitive person. So you can have my pie if you want to compete for it, and then I'll just kind of meander somewhere else.
Like there's this gigantic pie over here that I will go partake in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm here, like I'm really struck with the way that like community isn't about competition. It's like that deeper abundance, and also having space to disagree and have struggles. And it's not the like perfect, like we agree on everything and all of our values are aligned forever. It's like, oh no, we're here to do life together.
Yeah. And because true community isn't about agreement. Because if it is, then there's no truth in that. Because there's no way that anybody can agree on every single issue. And honestly, the stronger the disagreement, if we can figure out a healthy way to navigate that, the stronger the community. Because we need polar opposite opinions to clash against each other. That way we can figure out where are the weak spots and blind spots of our opinions. And if we're too busy agreeing with each other, then we can't figure that out. I mean, this is how science progresses, right? It's the clashing of views and figuring out which clashing view holds more of a truth. And so I'm not sure that we do a great job in society of disagreeing. I think it causes tribalism a lot of times. I think that's very unfortunate. And so I'm hoping that Walnut Street can be a space, and I can be a space to where it's like, it's cool that we disagree. That's a great thing.
Let's have a conversation.
Because guess what? We're so human.
Yeah, because if we agreed on everything, we would be the same person over and over and over and over
Yeah,
and over.
and that's no fun.
Yeah.
And we have such different lived experiences that lived experience should produce different opinions. If it doesn't do that, then the question becomes, were you free enough to process that fully to have your own opinion about what you lived?
Authenticity produces different opinions.
Yeah, it should at least, right? And so, because you're mixing up the variables all the time.
Yeah. Are you cool with your squeaky chair, or do you want a different one?
I'm cool.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to know how the work you're doing helps depression.
Yeah, definitely. So I think all of us who suffer from depression would agree that isolation is like the breeding ground for deeper depression.
It's like down and down and
Down,
and
right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that I hope that it does is by creating multiple chances and multiple expressions of community, it offers a space that when people are in those moments, they can be seen and called to be a part of something that they're comfortable with. Because I know when I'm in it, a lot of times well-meaning people offer me opportunities to be in community, but it's not an expression of community that's conducive in that space of darkness. And so I hope that the different ways that we go about community provide different opportunities for people going through their mental health ups and downs and journeys can step into the space that they're comfortable with. And then the other part is that art in itself is a catharsis. It's something, if it can be, it doesn't have to be, but it can be. And so whether it's by providing art supplies with our art recycling station, or providing the different avenues for people to create, or providing different forms of publication, we hope that it gives a medium for people to process their strong emotions and then allow other people to experience those strong emotions with them. That way, both sides feel seen and heard.
So first I want to emphasize that this community space you're making is one that's safe for me to show up with my depression. Like, I don't have to leave it outside. I don't have to pretend I don't have it. I can come in here and be like, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's what's companioning me right now.
That's good.
So thank you.
Yeah. I remember one day waking up in probably my most depressive state and saying, I'm okay. Like, I'm still a whole human. Mm-hmm. I don't have to change my state of depression to be a full human. Mm. This is just part of my journey. And that's what I think a lot of our lives are figuring out, how to redeem our full sense of humanity in ourselves.
That wholeness, yeah.
And so I'm hoping that our space can do that. So I'm so happy when people affirm that mission inside of us, because that's what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think making spaces safe for the gritty things of life to also show up it's harder than than holding space that doesn't do that.
Right.
And so like the bravery and courage and just like skill you have to have as a community person to be like, okay, it is safe here. Like, we're all in this together. Like, that's really awesome.
Yeah, it can be tough, and especially, with the state our society is in right now, safe has to mean that whether you're conservative or liberal, mm-hmm. let's use some of the really yucky words right now.
The words that are very,
So whether you support Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, mm-hmm. whether which side of issues you're on, safe space means that both those dueling perspectives can exist in the same space and be fully human at the same time. Mm-hmm. And their humanity isn't downgraded because they support one or the other side. And it can be very scary, because you never know where the triggers are, right? Because that's part of mental health too, yep. Like certain triggers. And I think part of safe space is also saying it's okay if a trigger is hit.
Ooh, this is good. Like, it's not about avoiding the triggers.
No, because if you're avoiding it, then it's not safe.
Because then you're walking on eggshells and tiptoeing.
Exactly.
But if you do hit it, and then having the skill mastery to be like, oh, that triggered you. Okay, like,
let's talk.
Let's I didn't mean to do that. Let's talk about it. Or yeah.
And I think that part of doing that means we have to be really good at asking questions, mm-hmm. and we have to be even better at listening to the answers. And if we do that, then triggers are okay. Because a lot of times in my life, the mistakes I made was I hit a trigger and I tried to walk back from the trigger. So I hit the trigger, then I started making assumptions of how to fix the trigger. And I wasn't great at asking questions after that. And so one of the things I hope that I'm growing into is to become better at asking questions when those sensitive issues are brought up, and then listening when they respond, and not listening in a way that I'm trying to restore my view, but listen in a way to where the whole atmosphere can grow.
Like listening in a way that like you're willing to get closer.
Yeah.
And not like run away.
And not just me either. Mm-hmm. Asking in a way to where if there is a community, there's more than one person there, that all of us can get closer with it too. So that means you have to be brave in the way that you ask questions as well.
You do have to be brave in the way you ask questions. A theme in my sessions this week with my clients has been they have some pretty strong one-on-one relationships, but all of the one-on-one relationships are in different groups. And there's no like group that they can go to and be like fully expressed, including their depression. And so I just want to, again, emphasize how cool it is to have a community and building that rather than just all these disparate pieces.
And you have to be genuine about that, right? Like, in order to do it, you genuinely have to feel that it's okay for people with different opinions to be around you. So one of the soft spots, I think, or sensitive spots is that I think a lot of people want people with different opinions around them, but they don't still that emotion when the disagreement happens long enough for them to be okay when the differences are brought up, because it can be difficult.
It can be very uncomfortable.
Very. And that's what, like, I intentionally started putting myself around people I disagreed with to learn how to do it.
Capable of being in relationship with this person even if I don't agree with
Right. And I started asking myself, am I asking this question so I can be heard? Like, am I setting them up to answer in a way to where then I can respond?
Am I manipulating the situation or am I listening?
Exactly. And so it's a fun challenge because being on the spectrum, having so many different social anxiety issues and stuff like that, it's a state to where I can say yes to growth all the time.
Saying yes to growth. Well, that's the invitation of depression too. It's like, hey, like, check engine light, what's going on? Are you going to accept that invitation?
Yeah. And so it's fun.
It is fun. I want to hear you talk about how people can get involved in the community, and then I also want to circle back to like using art to tell that story of that deeper, darker place and helping other people figure it out as well.
For sure. So another thing that we want to do in providing space is have space online. That way it doesn't just have to be those moments, because people are busy, so you may not always be able to connect us. So we do the traditional Instagram and Facebook, but we also have a Discord that's pretty active, and there's around 200 different artists on there, and it's a pretty fun community where people post their art, we post updates. So you can find that if you go to our Instagram and click on our link tree, you can find the link to our Discord there.
Walnut Street Publishing on Instagram?
We are, yep.
Okay.
And so that online space gives an opportunity to connect at all times. And then if you follow us on Instagram, we have so many different events that we do. So we do creative spaces.
It's almost every week, right?
Now it's becoming every week, yeah. So, because we do creative spaces the first and third Mondays, and that's just a gathering of creatives, like I said. But afterwards, on the first Friday, this space is open for open studio time. On the third Friday, we go to Art and Nougat afterwards. Every second Monday, we do D&D at Be Caffeinated. Every second Thursday, we do Paint Pass. Every last Thursday, we do poetry critique. And then sprinkled throughout that, we do different events like markets and festivals, and we have our artist retreat coming up. So if you follow Instagram, we have stuff going on all the time because people are busy, and we want to make sure that we're always providing something for them to do.
Here's the opportunities for you to plug in, pick which one works.
Exactly. The more chances you give people to say yes, the better it is for them, I think.
And for you guys, it's like, okay, here we are.
Yeah, true.
Even though it's hard sometimes to hold all that space.
It's very hard, but it's worth it. You have to be committed to the mission at hand, and the mission at hand.
You guys are definitely mission driven.
Very much so. I've sort of always been like that, I think. I don't know why, but I have been. And yeah, this is definitely a mission for me.
Your who am I and whose am I is about this mission. Yep.
Yeah, very much so.
That's amazing. So yes, plugging on Instagram is very helpful, and then the Discord, and then there's a calendar and things in your link tree with all your events, right?
Definitely.
Cool. And then circling back to art's role in making sense of the inner experience.
Right.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so it's different for everybody, I think, probably. I mean, you would know more than me, but I'm assuming like that experience. For me, a lot of times, I can feel the chemicals releasing in my body. It's like this really tangible chemical release that flows through my arm. And so I think having an avenue to where whatever your experience is, you can process into that gives an opportunity for honesty in the present moment.
So you feel the chemicals like surging through your arm,
Yeah.
and that tells you when you're in depression?
Yeah, a lot, not always, but in the worst states, definitely. Yeah,
And is it left and right? And are you left-handed or right-handed?
right-handed.
Okay, so you feel it in both of them.
Yeah,
And then do you make art with that feeling in your arm?
sometimes, yeah. And so when you do that, there's something about being vulnerable and then saying, I trust the audience to step in and process that vulnerability the way they need to. That I think that could be very powerful, because one, at least for me, I don't want to say for everybody else, during a lot of my mental health lows, I don't feel like I can connect with other people.
There's a wall, there's a veil, there's...
Yeah. And so if I can experience art during that moment, then all of a sudden I'm not alone, because somebody else is going through what I'm going through.
So art is something that can companion you in the pit.
Yeah.
And then when you're out of the pit, it also can companion someone who's in the pit.
Yeah, and it's like the cycle. And I tell people all the time, I'm not interested in happy art. I think happiness is such a singularity, and I think that's great, because like what makes you happy doesn't make me happy, and vice versa. So when people write or paint about happiness, I can't necessarily connect that. But that darkness, or that dark night of the soul, it's one of my favorite expressions.
I love that expression so much.
The dark night of the soul, we can all relate to that. It doesn't, we all can just, there's something that connects us that makes us feel very human in that moment. And I think that's why I think depression and these ups and downs mental health wise, I think it's a superpower, because it allows me to say yes or no to my humanity in a very, very extreme way, in a very passionate way. And so if I could feel depression, then I know there's an opposite side to that coin. That means there's going to be a height to that low, or there's a left to that right, however you want to.
Contraction and expansion.
Yeah.
Contraction and expansion, yeah.
And then, whichever, if I'm in the contraction, I can connect with somebody who is in the contraction. And that's what art gives me an opportunity to do. If I'm in the expansion, I can heal, I can breathe, I can communicate a little bit better, and then maybe even create more about that experience. And then and figure out more ways to connect when I'm in that expansion. And I think that's a very unique, singular way to connect to the universal.
Your depression is an opportunity to say yes more fully to your humanity.
Yes. And, you know, I never like to talk about medication or anything like that, because I'm not trained to, but I know for me, and
Yeah, you
just
can
for
talk
me,
about your experience.
depression actually, I feel lucky to have it. And it's super, like, it does get severe. It's not fun to go through. But the fact that I can feel so passionate, even about a darker emotion, makes me feel very fortunate, because that means that I can lean into the expansion when it comes.
I feel very similarly. Like, my depression gave me my mission, gave me Wellspring. Like, I do what I do now because of my experiences with depression, and that's a gift.
Yeah, like with this painting back here, right? There's a lot of texture. And if we just experienced one emotion, or if we just experience the expansion, there's no texture to that. Like, I wouldn't be, like, this texture is developed because of that expansion, contraction, expansion,
That
contraction.
landscape.
And so that's what makes art so in depth and in tune with our human experience. And I think without the struggle, you can't have depth. And so it's very unique. But then when somebody is at the low, they can come in and experience this, and they're probably going to recognize the dark triad of this. And then when they come out into the expansion, they can see the brighter the brightness coming out of it and stuff like that. So I think that's the value of art inside depression and mental health.
The texture of life.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. So just to kind of recap, Aaron Quinn, Walnut Street Publishing, publishing as community,
Yep.
safe space to bring your depression, show up as your whole human being, and then the helping with depression through connection to community and to creativity.
Right.
Anything else you want to add?
I also, it's safe to be anxious around us too.
Yes.
Right, because that's another thing that I'm seeing through a lot of people. A lot of people are very anxious. And this is a safe space for anxiety. If you just don't want to be alone, but you need to sit sort of a little bit off and quiet and not talk, that's cool too. So anxiety is very welcomed around here.
Bring your depression, bring your anxiety, bring you.
Exactly.
And come to Clear Story Arts where they have this beautiful space. Come to creative spaces, come to D&D.
Right. And one more thing, if I can.
Yeah, please do.
Let us know what you need. We can't provide for a need that we haven't heard. I don't want to make assumptions to what the community needs. I think that's
your
unfair.
listening practice.
Yeah. So if you need something, let us know, and that's why the art recycling station is there. Is somebody said, I wanted to try a medium of art, but I couldn't afford to buy the supplies. So we're like, okay, we'll take care of that. And so if you have a need, if there's something we can do to fulfill that need, we will do everything possible to fulfill it. So just let us know what the need is.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for having this mission and for committing to it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the interview. This was fun.
Yeah, we did it. Ta-da.